There's an amazing new sculpture on Commonwealth Avenue, carved out of a tree trunk in mid-stride, is a magnificent runner confidently bounding up Heartbreak Hill. I pass him on my way to Temple Emmanuel, and I'm always struck by how he never runs out of energy. A little more than 10 years ago, I ran a marathon. Well, run is perhaps too generous of a word. I jogged for a super long time until I crossed the finish line in what I had hoped would be under 6 hours. To this day, I'm still not entirely sure what possessed me to do this. Every time I see the tree trunk runner, I think back to my marathon. The tree trunk runner was carved to life in the middle of a global pandemic at a time when the Boston Marathon has now been called off for a second season. The tree trunk runner is by definition rooted in place, stuck on Heartbreak Hill, the hardest part of the route. And yet the sculptor filled him with eternal, boundless, positive momentum. The last leg of my marathon was the exact opposite. In runner speak, I hit the wall. Seasoned marathon runners speak of the wall as an experience to be studiously avoided. Scientifically, it's the point at which your body has depleted your stored glycogen, bringing out feelings of fatigue and exhaustion. And so I prepared for the wall. I trained for the wall. I tried to positive self-talk my way out of the wall. But I hit the wall hard. My exhaustion was matched only by my husband Mike's energy. Even though he hadn't planned to run this marathon, even though he hadn't trained to run this marathon, at my pace he figured it would be more like a long walk. And so he woke up that morning and decided to run with me. At mile 24, just 2.2 miles from the end, seeing me flagging, he encouragingly looked at his watch and said, "You can do this. You can make it under 6 hours." I looked at him and said, "Yeah, no." I'm not sure at that point if I even remembered why I was doing this, let alone why I had ever thought to try to come in any particular way or time. And so, 6 hours, 1 minute, and 5 seconds later, I crossed the finish line. Changed. And you know what? I have never regretted those 65 seconds. Indeed, they were among the most important 65 seconds of my life because they schooled me in acceptance. They sensitized me to how painful the choice is to keep going when your energy is flagging and everything feels too hard. The reality of hitting the wall with the finish line in sight feels like an apt metaphor for where we are as a nation in this pandemic. This week, the United States marked a grim milestone. More than 300,000 dead from the coronavirus. And this week, the United States marked a hopeful turning point, the administrations of the first approved vaccine. Heartache and hope. On the one hand, the news could not be better. There's never been a more focused or faster vaccine whose rates of efficacy appear beyond any expectations. There's hope in a possible economic aid package that appears to be on the verge of helping those hit hardest by this pandemic. Hope in our beloved member, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, being appointed to head the CDC, bringing her light to our nation, sharing the strong, steady, science-grounded leadership that she has so lovingly given to our congregation throughout this pandemic with our country and our world. And on the other hand, hospitals across our country are nearing capacity. Economic devastation is rampant, and community spread is now so significant, driven by our very human need to be close to one another, our very human exhaustion for having done this pandemic isolation for so long. This was stunningly captured in a recent Boston Globe article entitled, "Makes You Wonder Why the Heck We Even Bother? Infectious disease experts face disillusionment as COVID-19 pandemic worsens." Heartache and hope. How do we keep going? Keep limiting our gatherings, keep limiting our dining out, keep limiting our travel, keep limiting our contacts with those we love and miss so much it hurts. What do we do when we're at mile 24 of a grim marathon we never would have signed up to run? Hope is around the corner, but we've hit the wall. Luckily, we can refuel with the wisdom of our Jewish tradition. We've been through tough times before. Indeed, in our story this morning, Joseph found himself in jail. He'd interpreted 2 dreams, both of which had come true, and Joseph had pinned all of his hopes on the cupbearer. But last week's parsha ended ominously. The chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph. And just in case we missed the point, the verse ends, "He forgot him." It's easy to imagine Joseph hitting a wall. When our parsha picks up this week, it's been 2 full years until finally Joseph is summoned. It's then that Joseph gives us a key to resilience, to finding a new wind when we have hit the wall. Back at home, when times were good, Joseph shared his own dreams as being all about him. Now, facing Pharaoh, this previously pampered young man has learned from his hardship. Rashi notices something odd in the Torah's report, that the necromancers did not interpret the dreams for Pharaoh. He doesn't accept for one moment that the people paid to satisfy Pharaoh's every whim did not offer him, or at least attempt to offer him, some explanation of his dreams. Instead, Rashi suggests that the verse be read that the necromancers did not interpret for Pharaoh. In other words, they gave him a personal read of his dream, as if the dreams were about him alone, one person going through anxious times. What Joseph did in contrast was see Pharaoh as linked to his people. He offered an interpretation which enabled Pharaoh to see beyond himself, to see himself as intricately bound and responsible to a greater whole. That same truth helped famous refusenik Natan Sharansky get through 9 years in a Soviet prison. As he shared at the beginning of the pandemic, in prison, I didn't know when I'll be released. In fact, I didn't know if I'll be released at all. I always had to remind myself, I am part of a huge global battle. Remember, he said, that you are not alone. We Jews, for thousands of years all over the world, were scattered, but we always had this feeling that we are part of a big people, a great people, with our mutual past and our mutual future and our mutual mission. We are not going through this pandemic alone. We all have a mission, no matter how small, to protect and preserve each other's health and life and safety. If you have hit a wall, if your energy is flagging, if all you want to do is hug your mom or your grandpa or just feel normal by going out to a meal with a group of friends, look left and look right. Remember that you are part of something bigger, a people who have persisted for thousands of years with concern for each other that steadied them and can steady us now through heartache with hope. There are so many who are trekking with us, so many who we may be called right here, right now, to go beyond ourselves, to be of service to them in their time of need. Heartbreak Hill, it turns out, is famous not only for being heartbreaking, but for being a place which can offer a second wind. The story is told that in the Boston Marathon of 1936, Ellison Tarzan Brown went out hard, and his energy was starting to flag. By mile 20, Johnny Kelly, the winner of the previous year's marathon, caught up with him and patted him on the back. That pat reinvigorated Brown, who surged ahead to win. The hill is named for the heartbreak Johnny Kelly felt with that fateful pat. But there's a coda to the story. The news of that day reported, "Fifth is Kelly, worn, battered to bits. Kelly covers the last mile on nerve alone. Badly beaten, this Johnny Kelly, but his great heart is not broken." Kelly went on to run the Boston Marathon 61 times, including a marathon finish at the age of 84. Kelly kept running that hill. His energy wavered in that most famous race, but his connection to the running community grounded him, inspired him to renew and to keep looking forward on the path, eventually earning him the role of Boston Marathon Grand Marshal in 1995. It's easy for a statue to be eternally robust, easy for the tree trunk runner to always keep running. For us, it takes continued resolve. Don't give up. Don't give in. Keep on going. Shabbat Shalom.